If you're suffering from getting too close to your backhand, this is the video you need to watch. This is one thing that plagues so many players. They're running to the backhand and they don't know how to find the right spacing. So what happens is when they get to the ball, they're too close and they can't create any power. If you are suffering from this, it comes from one reason, and that's because you don't know how to measure the ball and you don't know how to find the right spacing, and I'm going to show you how to do that in this drill. So I'm going to explain again what happens and how do we get in this position. What really happens is when we take our racket back, our racket's too close to our body. And so what that means is we generally take the racket back like this really early, and what happens? It's too close to your body. Or the second thing is you don't take your racket back soon enough and in the right way. Incorrect way would be is when the ball comes is we wait for the last second, then we try to do everything at the last minute. And what causes, or what happens is we don't have time. I call this we don't front load our swing, meaning taking the racket back more in the front of the swing to have less to do in the back. The other problem is when we take the racket back, we take it so far back, we get too close. So here we take it so far back, we get too close. The fix is making sure that we start to take the racket away from our body. So getting the racket here, so when the ball comes, look at the difference in spacing. By having my unit turn and keeping the racket in front like this, boom, it makes it so much easier for me to track the ball and know where to be. And you can really see this from behind here where my spacing's so much better. Even if I want to step in, it's perfect. And so I'm going to show you a couple drills that you can start doing to improve your spacing. The very first thing we got to think about is when we're doing our unit turn and we turn, we want to get our hands away from our body. So what this means is this. So many players start with their hands so close to the body. So what this means is when I turn, guess what? The racket's still really close to my body and we don't want that. So to get away from that, we want to get our hands away from our body. What this does now is when we turn, it keeps our hands on the left side of my body. I'm a right-handed player. So when I turn now, boom, I have some space. Now the reason this is so important is because we want to get to this position where we can start pushing our weight through the ball. Maybe you've heard me talk about this on the forehand, but guess what? It's the exact same thing on the backhand. What I mean by this is that we want to be in a position that when we make contact, my shoulder can now push through the ball. And so if you really think about a backhand, what is it? It's a matter of pushing your weight through the ball. And so what's happening when we take our racket back too far, we can't push through the ball. Or when we don't take it back early enough, we mess up the timing of pushing through the ball. So by taking it back here in my unit turn first, and that just simply means turning my shoulders and turning my chest towards the direction of where the ball's coming and keeping this in front, this allows me to measure and also puts me in a great position that when I'm ready, I can drive my body through the ball. And that'll help you with great spacing and creating more power and consistency on your backhand. So now it's time to do some drills to help improve this. Now the very first thing is I'm going to start off left-handed and I'm just going to get the racket out in front of me. Now here's some really important keys to when we're taking the racket back. Notice how from this position, if I take my racket back, the racket's still in front of my body. And what I mean by in front of my body, if you notice my belly button should be right about here, hopefully it's still there. And my racket's here in my ready position. I'll flip my grip to my backhand. And as I turn, notice how my belly button and the racket are still aligned. But now, in this position, my belly button's facing this direction, my racket's this way, everything's on the side. This is a great position to be in. So now that when I'm ready, I can drive through the ball. Now the problem is most players, when they take the racket back, they pull the racket off the center of the body too early. So it looks like this. They go here, and they start taking the racket back here. So now, when you're ready to drive, the hands are too far behind you. Yes, you do see players like Djokovic getting the racket here, but what you'll notice is, boom, when they're ready to make contact, you see this arm extended so they can drive through the ball. Where a lot of recreational players take the racket back here, and then it's just swinging, and you see how this arm's really late and behind. Hence, they can't drive, and they start doing other things. Now, that's a different problem, but for spacing, we just want to have the racket here. So I want you to start thinking of my hand out here, and I want you to take the ball and have this out in front of you. So you can see how everything's away from me. And I want you to toss the ball up and swing forward. Noticing that all I'm doing is making sure I have good spacing. Now the nice thing about this is when I'm doing this type of drill, it'll inform me a lot about where I need to be. So watch this. I'm going to have the racket out here, but I'm going to toss the ball much closer to me over here. So it makes me move out of the way of the ball. I'm going to move my feet a little bit more. So if I toss it here, boom, notice how it's much easier to track the ball because I'm tracking the ball with the racket, meaning that when the racket comes down, it's all the way out here. I want the butt of the racket pointing at the ball. And by having the racket and the ball line up, when I drop it, this in the slot position. So if you watch them from here, boom. And this is how I can start to get great spacing. Start off with the drill just like this, and then we can start tossing the ball to the side. So if I toss it to the side, you can see now I'm working on my spacing and my racket's staying with the ball. Compared to, nope, I don't have time, or too close. Again, back it out here, boom, nice and smooth. And this is how you can start developing the right spacing. Now notice how we're starting off in this progression. I'm just starting off hand feeding here. Then I'm starting off doing a little bit of movement. And then the next progression will be where you either have the ball machine toss you a ball, so you go from hitting balls here to now having the ball machine hit you a ball that's a little bit more force, and you work on the moment you see the ball, getting your racket to this position to help you track, and then completing your swing. Here, boom. That's much better. Boom. Much better. I'll get in front, boom. And this is the way you want to start really thinking about how you can have better spacing. Because now, with better spacing means you can start really taking your weight and driving through the ball. It makes it much easier to be more consistent at hitting more power on the backhand because my spacing gets better, which means allows me to really push and drive through the ball. And that's how you're gonna start having a more consistent backhand. Now, if you wanna know every step to hitting the backhand, go watch this video because I'll show you step by step exactly what you need to do in every part of your backhand to have a solid backhand.